sometimes people may think that opening up the relationship, you're taking the easy way out, and that couldn't be further from the truth.
It looks like low-hanging fruit.
Exactly.
And it's not.
Yes.
Because being able to, like you said, it will be destabilizing. It's not if, it's when.
Exactly.
And how to be able to hold when somebody's dissatisfied.
Yeah.
I would argue that most couples need to build this muscle.
100%.
Welcome to the Mind Meets Medicine podcast, where we believe the future of healthcare is mind meeting medicine. Hi, I'm Kaila, a licensed therapist and founder of a mental health care clinic.
And I'm Dr. Sir, a board-certified psychiatrist.
Together, we will join the fields of medicine and psychology to provide education, elevate guest perspectives, and foster curious, informed conversations.
The contents of this show are for informational and educational purposes only and are not intended to replace professional, medical, or clinical advice. This content does not establish a patient-provider relationship. Always seek the guidance of a qualified healthcare provider for any questions you may have regarding your health or treatment. If you're experiencing a psychiatric emergency, please call emergency services or go to your nearest hospital immediately.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
To Mind Meets Medicine. We have a really exciting guest on today and a fun topic we're going to talk about. I am your co-host, Kaila.
I'm Dr. Sir.
And we have our mutual friend on today.
Yeah. So excited to have you. And it's rare that we have someone that we're both close to on the pod. So thank you for coming. Our special guest today is here in San Jose, Campbell area. Is a founder, CEO of a group, Relucent Psychology.
Founder, CEO, mom, sidey, friend, wife.
Mm-hmm. The only person who I work out with and leave in a lot of pain.
We can say fitness enthusiast.
Fitness enthusiast.
Yeah.
Definitely physical therapy after. I haven't actually gone back. I think
I know I've invited you and you have rebuffed my invitations.
Yeah. I'm working my way. I'm like, I need to work out so that I can go work out with Dr. Shereen Mohsen, who we have here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. That's so exciting. And today we're talking about non-monogamous relationships.
Yeah. Ethical non-monogamy, couples work. And I think, but before we dive in, it would be great if we could have you just give us a little intro of your background and the work you do and the practice that you own.
Yeah.
And then what led you into this kind of specialty area?
Yeah, that sounds good. So I've been in the field for about 17 years. And I started working with kids, actually. I started working with kids, thought that I was going to be a child adolescent psychologist. Yet when I started working really in depth with parents, I then found this like new love for working with adults. And so then I pivoted and I've worked in all different kinds of types of agencies, community mental health, college counseling centers, integrated behavioral health centers. And then I eventually found my true love in private practice about 10 years ago. And the first couple of years loved it and got the ins and outs of it, but then really wanted to create a community around me. And an opportunity presented itself to start a group, and I jumped at it. Clinically, I was psychodynamically trained earlier in my career, and that's really, I think, my kind of like where my foundation started clinically and how I really like to conceptualize things. But then as time went on, I started to pick up different modalities like EMDR, which I really love. Internal family systems is something I've really adopted. I love object relations and attachment work. That's something I feel really passionate about. And I kind of integrate it all, right? And then you can throw in CBT and DBT when needed. And I love having just a great toolbox of methodologies and approaches because we do see such a variety of clients that being able to, really assess, okay, this tool may work better for them. And maybe something that's going to be more object relations or attachment focused will work better for them. Or maybe actually I got to throw that out the door and I got to be a bit more DBT. And I just love having that. And that's been such a huge I think, gift over the last, so many years that I've been in the field of just being able to apply these different modalities, because then I feel like I can access more people, right?
I have to say,
Yeah.
when I hear you talk, you're so well-rounded
Thank
as
you.
a clinician. And I also want to say too, like, just I really respect your clinical judgment. You have really sound intuition and instincts, and you have this wonderful training. And when I hear you talk about your work, it's really special. So
thank you for saying that.
You're really, and I also want to say too, something about you is you just get it. You have common sense, and you're very like human throughout all your training, which is so important to stay just who you are.
Yeah.
Like you're very real.
Thank you.
And authentic. And I think you bring that everywhere, in every space that you're in.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yes, it was interesting just hearing more about the background and training, because I'm like, yeah, Shereen's, I just know the finished product is like trustworthy, discerning.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, yeah, I guess it makes sense that you would have learned all these things and learned all these, because it just comes out as like a very smooth, flowy, warm presence.
Thank you. I mean, I really do think that the exposure to all these approaches have helped, but I really strongly believe I wouldn't be the clinician I am today if it wasn't for my own personal work, I mean, for the last 20 years, on and off, but mostly on, being in my own therapy and doing my own deep personal work, I think it's honestly underrated for clinicians doing the work yourself, because it humbles you. It humbles you so intensely.
If we're expecting our clientele to come in and be ready to do the work that we're wanting for them and they're asking from us, we got to go do it too.
Yeah, exactly.
And make sure that our stuff isn't influencing or driving their process.
Yeah, and I also think when we've done our own work, clients can pick up on that. Just the language that you use, even just on a subconscious level, the language that you use, you can tell, and the clients can tell, like, oh, she gets it.
Yeah.
And she doesn't just get it from an intellectual stance because she's educated or whatnot, or she's had experience with these clients, but no, she actually like personally gets it. I truly believe clients get that.
Attunement
Yes.
that you can see me because you've also like walked this walk.
Yeah.
And it could be different.
Right.
It's different things, but I love this saying, we're all walking each other home. Like we're even in therapy, we're all on this journey of life.
Yeah.
And wanting to live it to the fullest. Yeah.
Right.
So you were kind of saying like coming into couples work.
Yes.
It was a shift after working with kids and teens and families.
Right. So I was working primarily first with individual adults. And then, I started to get some couples on my caseload and just love the dynamics of it. Right. And given just my passion for attachment, it's just front and center with every couple that you see, and then in my private practice, I started to get, a couple of calls of people looking for couples therapy specifically for open relationships and non-monogamy. And at first, this was maybe about 10 years ago. At first, I was like, oh, okay, like I know a little bit about it. But honestly, when these people were calling me, what they were really looking for was just somebody who wouldn't judge them. And over the phone, when we're doing just that initial consultation, they're saying, we've seen a couple of therapists, we felt uncomfortable. And it wasn't even that they didn't know much about it. It was just, we felt judged. So we really just explicitly them saying, we just really want to see somebody who won't judge us. And I said, I don't know much about open relationships, but I respect your choices and I will do my best to understand and meet you where you're at. And that was really how it got started. And so this niche kind of found me in a way because, I started to just see more and more couples and individuals needing just some support in open relationships. And I really loved the work. And so I started doing my reading and doing my trainings. And I really enjoy working with this community.
Yeah. So it still blows my mind how often it is for people to feel judged or even like disrespected sometimes in therapy for value systems or different ways of living.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, it's a little bit of an aside, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I appreciate how people who needed trust and support found you, and vulnerable people. And then it kind of turned into this collective. But just thinking about the starting material of like people looking around and finding judgment in therapy, it's just.
Yeah. And it's still happening, you know, and that's what's really unfortunate. Like, even though that's what I was hearing 10 years ago with my clients now, I still hear they're not open about it with their colleagues at work. They're not open about it with their families. They worry about, they worry about going out on dates with other people that's not their primary partner because they worry they'll run into people and then there will be judgment and talking about it negatively. And so it's a very real thing that's still going on, where there's a lot of, not just within the clinical community, but just even beyond that, judgment around it.
Yeah, for sure. It's still, even where we live, I would say it's still stigmatized or taboo or. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. How would you define ethical non-monogamy?
I define ethical non-monogamy as people who are exploring and dating other people outside of their primary relationship. And there's transparency, there's honesty, and there's open communication about these other relationships. Sometimes there is a primary relationship and sometimes there's not, right? So sometimes say one person is single and they're having 3 other relationships. There's no primary relationship. There's no one that's like at a higher, if we're thinking about it as a hierarchy, there's no one that's above the others. They're all equal, but there's openness about every single relationship with every single partner. And so that's how I define it. And then beneath, I'd say that's kind of the umbrella. And then there is polyamory, which is people who engage in relationships that are emotionally intimate. And then there's open relationships, which is usually considered more for sexual pleasure, having multiple sexual partners, but it's not necessarily emotionally intimate. So that's a pretty big distinction, right?
Big time.
Because some people will engage in open relationships, and sometimes they may mean that there's emotional intimacy, but they're just not explicitly stating that. But polyamory specifically is loving and really deeply connecting with other people.
Having like long-term relationships with more than one partner.
More often than not, yeah. So, and those distinctions and definitions are important, right? Especially when you are communicating it with other partners, being really clear. That's one really big tenet, I'd say, of being open and ethical non-monogamy, is being really honest with yourself first and foremost, but then also you can't be honest with other people if you're not being honest with yourself, right? And so being really honest with and forthcoming with your multiple partners so that there aren't issues that come up, right? That we all tend to see in any relationship, right? Whether it's betrayal or, dishonesty that comes up, and then that breaks trust. And it's really hard to pursue a healthy relationship if there isn't trust. Yeah.
Something that I think comes up a lot is in couples work is one person is requesting this in a couple and one person is resistant to it.
Yeah.
And, I think the judgment can come from it's very easy for the judgment to come from a therapist or the other person when there's perceived hurt, or like you just want to cheat on me, or you're not happy with me, or some version of I'm not enough for you. And it's really, I think, pathologizing for the person who's interested in exploring this or has had success with this in the past in other relationships, to feel really judged for wanting something outside of a relationship that does fill their cup.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if maybe you have something to say about that, or we could start with that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, and I think what you're talking about, the pathologizing, the fear of judgment, is really why a lot of times the person doesn't end up coming out asking for what they feel like they're needing, which is to have an open relationship, right? And I think, Esther Perel, who's so well known in couples work, speaks to this really beautifully, which is, historically we were around large villages, right, and communities. And so we were getting our emotional needs met it from multiple people anyway. And as time has gone on, our society now heavily relies on and has these expectations that we should be getting everything from one partner, right? Friendship, intellectual stimulation, physical intimacy, life, long life plans and compatibility in that way, co-parenting, financial support. Yeah. I mean, you name it. If you really think about it, it's a very long list that we're expecting our one partner to meet. And I think it puts a lot of pressure on monogamous relationships, right? And so I think, then when somebody does want to open their relationship, it makes them feel a lot of shame around it, right? Especially if, people around them may have, their friends, their family may not be approving of it. And then if their partner may have, to your point, some negative reactions to it. So a lot of conversations have to take place around that, right? Because there's wounding on both sides, right? There's wounding on the part who wants to open because they feel like, well, this feels like this is genuinely me, and it feels like it's not okay. That's really hard, right? So making space for that. And then rightfully so, the other partner feels inadequate and feels maybe worried that they're going to be replaced, right? That's also fair, and we need to make space for that. And so that's actually a really common initial reason why people will seek couples therapy, and that's something that I tend to see a lot.
Yeah.
And I imagine we'll get to this at some point to go in more depth. But one thing that is super clear is opening up the relationship in the hopes that it will solve problems is like a number one.
Well, let's go there. Let's go there.
Yeah.
Because I think that this is so normal for just general, like blanket statement. A lot of people think if we have a kid, that will solve this problem. Or if we make more money, if we open the marriage, if we
buy a house,
if we do these things to propel life forward or establish certain commitments to each other, that this will somehow, the future is romanticized. Some fix will
external,
some external thing will support this internal turmoil.
Right. The grass is greener.
The grass is greener.
Yeah.
Especially in this day and age with dating.
Yeah.
And so what we know as clinicians is that anything pre-existing, some big shift will still be there unless it's truly worked through.
Right. Yeah. And I'm pretty direct with the couples that I see around this.
Yeah.
I really just explicitly say any cracks in your relationship, any cracks in your foundation, it will be amplified when you open up and you're not cautious about it. Yeah. Right. And I'm very direct in saying, I think we need to address these things in order first before we really explore opening up. Otherwise, and of course I say, do what you have to do what feels right for you. But just based on my experience in working with couples in this space for a while, I just see that without really taking it seriously, really trying to address some of the issues in their own relationship, opening it up is not going to solve it. I think sometimes you'll see couples saying, well, I'm not getting my emotional needs met, so maybe I can get it met somewhere else. The fact that you're not getting it met in that relationship, though, that's not going to change. So even when you're getting it met in other places, that might feel good in the moment, but you're still dissatisfied in this relationship. So how is that going to get better, right? And I think when that isn't given adequate space, right, the space that it deserves, then that relationship might suffer, right?
Yeah.
I wonder how you work with reframing when it's presented as like the dilemma or their problem. Like I have a number of patients in these sorts of relationships, but the doctor-patient relationship or the medical relationship, it's not as relevant or pertinent to get into the origin story with it. And I'm just curious, as someone that's like there in the beginning or the middle or the end, from an ignorant position, I feel like when I have heard it brought up, it is to sort of solve something or fix something? And how do you work on reframing it in a different way that actually supports the primary relationship or the process of whatever the primary relationship is going?
Yeah, that's a good question.
At least in this specific style of, yeah.
I just like to slow it down first. And I just ask, what are your goals? What are your goals as a couple? Right? Maybe one of the goals is opening up, but that's not the only goal. So what is their goal as a couple? Is it to reconnect? Is it to enhance their emotional intimacy? Is it to feel heard and understood by one another, right? Like I really want to get a sense of what that is. And, you know, depending on where they're at in reaching that goal, if they're really far from that, I'll explicitly say, if we open now, without really getting a solid foundation and really developing the skills to get closer to reaching that particular goal, whatever it might be, opening up will complicate things, right? There's something called new relationship energy, NRE, that can happen where it can be destabilizing for the primary relationship. And so it just adds so much complexity that I'll explicitly say, in order for us to reach the goals that you want for your relationship, and if that's your priority, that's what we got to work on now. And then the opening up can happen at another point where you guys are standing stronger together, right, as a team, because then whatever other things come up when we're opening up, right, that can destabilize a relationship, they have the tools to be able to recover and repair. And that's so key, right? Monogamy, non-monogamy, there has to be moments of repair because there will be moments of rupture. Right? It's inevitable. And so I really want the couples that I work with to feel really solid that they know how to repair. Because like I said, the rupture is going to happen. And so until that happens, and until they feel like they're getting at least some of their core needs met that they want in any relationship, right? Of feeling heard, feeling understood. I'm always like, let's slow down the pace. And sometimes you may see one of them feeling really antsy of wanting to open up or like really maybe, then that shows maybe where their priority is. And that can be really illuminating.
Yeah. As you're talking, that was so well said. As you're talking, it makes me think how repair and knowing the dynamics of conflict resolution and there's such in my own work with couples, there's such a challenge in sitting with your partner's the discomfort of your partner being unhappy with you and just sitting in that, not getting angry at them, not reacting to them, holding space for them being disappointed in you, them being confused by what you're wanting, the reaction of wanting to counter say it's, well, I'm not enough for you. And one partner then responding, no, you are. But that's not it. When you say slow it down.
Yeah.
Seeing each other for where they're at, holding it, not reacting. That's the work. It's so slow. It's like, and if somebody is like, you know, just trying to get a neat, like something outside of the relationship, like you were saying, they're like, I've been thinking about this for so long. I'm finally asking for it. I'm finally saying this and I'm ready to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And somebody's not ready.
Right.
You can only move as fast or slow as the person who has the hesitancy for the health of the relationship.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Really well said. You know, and I think that can cause a lot of conflicts, right?
Yeah.
One person feeling antsy, one person feeling like, oh, I'm taking too long, right? And so it's a dance of holding both of their emotional states, right? Because they're so valid, yet at the same time helping them see and understand one another, right? Because the truth is when we feel activated or triggered, right? Even like it's a common trauma word, like feeling triggered or activated. It is so difficult to be able to empathize and see really understand and sit with our partner's feelings, especially if the person feeling activated is feeling activated with shame.
Yeah.
right? Because we just kind of shut down those feelings.
This is where IFS is so great.
Yeah.
If they're able to say like a firefighter's coming in or something, you know, like this is,
right.
or I know that this is what's trying to come and protect these parts of me.
Yeah.
And as clinicians, then we can know, oh, this is what's happening. Like,
yeah. So slowing down is so important. And I think, you know, in a lot of ways, sometimes people may think that opening up the relationship, you're taking the easy way out. And that couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah. I'm like, that doesn't sound easy at all.
No, right? But it can seem easy where you're like, oh, you're not working on your issues. So you're just going to open up your relationship and just
or there's a
solve
need.
this problem.
Solve the problem.
It looks like low-hanging fruit.
Exactly.
And it's not.
Yes.
Because being able to, like you said, there will be destabilizing. It's not if, it's when.
Exactly.
And how to be able to hold when somebody's dissatisfied.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would argue that most couples need to build this muscle.
100%.
As humans, most people are well-meaning. You know, they don't want to hurt their partners. They don't want to rupture. We want to stay in a state of, you know, mostly copacetic. Everything's fine. We're status quo. And this is rocking the boat. And so it's like, oh, we have a big omission. This is happening. We're starting. And then it's like, wait, we got to backpedal. We got to hold on.
Yeah.
I also do want to shift a little bit to like, what happens when people come to you and they're already in this? We're not thinking about it. We are actively in practicing ethical non-monogamy. We're in maybe a polyamorous relationship, or we are in an open relationship, and they're trying to navigate. And they maybe haven't found the right therapist, and there is hurts that are coming up.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like to first get like a lay of the land, right? Like I like to go back and hear about like, was their relationship always open? Right? Because sometimes that can happen, right? Like it's just open from the start, or were they monogamous?
Two people with the same orientation that meet versus a change in
Yeah, like maybe when they met, they were dating other people, and then they decided to make each other primary. That can happen, right? But they're continuing their other relationships, or did they come into the relationship deciding to be monogamous, and then they decided to open? I'm really curious about that, right? Because if they were monogamous and then they decide to become open, I want to know kind of the ins and outs of how they got to that, right? What led them to first want to be monogamous, and then what led them to want to open. I also want to know like the state of their other relationships. And like, I think some of the biggest things that I'd like to know is, how do they communicate? Do they feel heard and understood when they communicate? How do they navigate jealousy? Because that's something that's also inevitable. How do they navigate ruptures? How do they work towards, and how do they prioritize connecting with each other after having other dates with other people? And, you know, and also I think what can also make a difference is whether they have relationships with each other's partners, right? So that could also, I want to know kind of the lay of the land in that way. And, you know, and I think, one piece here too that is so important is that people who go into open relationships, they have to be okay with complexity. They have to be okay with sitting with complexity. Right? And so those are all things that I'm kind of assessing and getting a feel for, right? Their level of emotional awareness, their emotional maturity in general, their ability to take accountability. That's a big one. And so that's like kind of just in the beginning of me just really wanting to understand what are the cracks and what are the things that they're really wanting help with. But more often than not, when they are already coming to me and they're open, it's usually because boundaries aren't being respected. Or they are having difficulties navigating jealousy, which really touches on attachment and how they're addressing that. Which, by the way, I will say jealousy happens whether it's a monogamy or non-monogamy, right? It's just in non-monogamy, it's maybe a bit more explicit and it's talked about more, but it happens in any kind of relationship, right?
Well, and I think maybe there's even like a expectation that why could you be jealous? You signed up for this.
Bingo. Yes, that's a big one. And I think that that's such a misconception.
It's such a misconception.
It's because, yes, you signed up for it, but also natural emotions are going to come up.
Yeah.
And to think that those emotions are not going to come up, I think is just wanting to oversimplify something, right?
Yeah.
And to not want to face the fact that jealousy is a very normal, natural thing that we actually don't need to be afraid of. Right. I don't think jealousy means something.
Or react to.
It doesn't mean,
you don't
this
have
is
to
something
assign
bad.
value to it.
Exactly. It's not something bad. I see it as information.
Yeah.
I see, and this is what feelings are about. They're giving us information about something that needs some attention. Right.
Yes. And it's not a reflection even of the other person. It can be, there's something so beautiful about how you're describing, like, when one partner is having something come up and then just having having your partner witness a therapist walk someone through, well, let's explore it.
Yeah.
And it's soft and tender and vulnerable, and the other partner softens.
Yeah.
It's really really beautiful. And sometimes you need that.
Yeah.
You need the therapist as the person that's facilitating that work.
Right.
So that it is safe to go to those places without getting activated.
Right. Because also one other thing about jealousy is, what jealousy really is about is it's fear of being replaced. It's fear of losing the person, right?
Yeah.
And I think when you really sit with that, like that's sad. You want to help that person. You want to support that person. They're afraid, right? So I think even when you reframe what jealousy is about, sometimes we hear jealousy and we're like, oh, get away from that. Like, oh, they're jealous.
That's
right?
toxic.
That's toxic.
Yeah, pathologic.
They pathologize it, right? But really, when you peel back the layers of what jealousy is about, they're afraid, right?
And connecting it to their attachment and understand.
Exactly.
It's like, and yeah, I think what you're saying too, it's like some of it's intellectualizing what's happening and understanding how we got here.
Yeah.
And then also going internal.
Yeah. And I think just even me observing how couples navigate situations like that is really just informative for me, right? If the partner who's on the receiving end of the jealousy is dismissive of it, reacts negatively to it, that tells me a lot, right? About maybe where some of the cracks are. I start to get curious then about why is there difficulty tolerating your partner's jealousy? What's coming up there for you? Right. Yeah. So, working with open relationships and couples, it's extremely rich. That's one thing I will say. There's new things coming up. There's different dynamics coming up. Attachment is such a big piece of it. The importance of just continuing to better yourself for your partners, for yourself, but also for just in order to have healthy relationships. You just see such a direct relationship to your own emotional maturity and the health in your relationships. And so it's just exciting for me to see and witness and support them in that, whether they end up deciding to stay open or not. Right? Because sometimes that happens too, where they come in open and then they decide, they may decide, actually, we don't want to do this anymore. It may be a phase in life where they for whatever reason, they want to maybe minimize the complexity and close it. And so it's really fluid, right? Just depending on what's working best for the relationship. Yeah.
I was wondering for people in relationships and they've done the work, the relationship's secure, the cracks are smaller. What are the healthy ways what are the reasons that people decide to go open? Like, I feel like a lot of judgment or stigma is like, oh, if people are opening, there's something wrong in the relationship. But when there's not something quote unquote wrong in the relationship, why are people opening up or? Yeah.
What I tend to see a lot is the person or people who are wanting to open up, they kind of, they describe it as, especially when they identify as being polyamorous, they describe it as, I feel like I have so much love to give. And this relationship is really satisfying for me, but I feel like I have more to give and I have more that I want to receive. Right? And so they really see it as there's so much richness and fulfillment that you can get out of having more loving relationships. And that's why I want it. right? It isn't an idea of replacing. It isn't, well, you're not giving me this, so it's really just, I want more of, I want to receive more, and I have more to give, right? And so that's what I tend to see most with the polyamorous relationships. I tend to see, now that I think about it, which is interesting, I tend to see more polyamory than open, casual sex relationships. Which is interesting. Maybe
or both, or like, I guess the people in the room, individuals, are all polyamorous, or there's one.
Sometimes there are scenarios where one has multiple loving relationships and the other does not, right? And if that works for them, fine. So that's definitely a possibility. But I rarely have seen scenarios, now that I think about it, where there's a couple where one is open and it just has sexual relationships with other people and the other doesn't, and that doesn't cause problems.
Yeah.
I
think that brings in a lot of concern for me about consent. And when one person is kind of in the driver's seat of the decisions for the relationship, you see that in the dynamic in the couples therapy.
For sure. And that is also something that I'm like sussing out in the midst of kind of initiating with a couple is power dynamics.
Yeah.
And is there any kind of manipulation happening, using, say, feelings of jealousy to control? Those are things that are alarming, and I do try to flag those. And, that I would certainly say not the way to have a healthy, open relationship.
And I want to be really clear. This isn't you judging the decisions that they're making. It's really rooted in understanding both parties have equal say and consent and rights in the relationship about how we're handling these very vulnerable and sensitive decisions, like how we engage with each other. And I think maybe this is also a good segue to bring up how to be a trauma-informed clinician and therapist in this space, because when we're working with really complex relational dynamics and also sex and intimacy, this can speak to a lot of trauma work.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like gender probably comes up in
Yeah.
this space too.
Yeah, I mean, being trauma-informed and that being such a big part of where, another really big niche in my practice is, I kind of come from a place where I think almost everyone has had some level of trauma in their life, right? Whether they identify it as that or not. One person in the trauma space, Frank Anderson, who I just absolutely adore, he, really describes trauma as just an overwhelming life experience. And when you identify it that way, almost everybody would be like, well, yeah, I've had that. Right. And so I think even just coming at it from that lens of like, we've all had overwhelming life experiences. What does that do? It instantly depathologizes it. Right? Because the idea of trauma, sometimes someone who's not in the therapy world says like, oh, I don't think I've had trauma. It feels scary to them.
Well, and
or it's like
so
a brokenness to have been traumatized.
Right. Yeah.
It's a lot. I mean, how we define it too, and how TikTok defines it is so, it's like.
And how the DSM defines it.
And how the DSM defines it. And then also, I think it's so common for couples to come in and we can kind of explore a little bit of how did you grow up? What were the dynamics at home? And it's really common for me to see people being like, it wasn't bad. I had a good childhood. And then you kind of peel back a little bit of the layers and it's like, well, I wasn't abused or I wasn't, hit. And so that means I didn't have a traumatic childhood.
Right.
But then as people start talking, it's like, well, you could have had traumatic relationships or your first love passed away or, things really, or substance abuse in the home or
neglect.
I mean, the lack of can be traumatic.
Or
yes.
I think a lot of people have, especially in the avoidant attachment, which we see a lot in couples work is people who are avoidantly attached and somebody who's anxiously attached come in together.
Yeah.
This is like one of the most common pairings that we see, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the person who has avoidant attachment wasn't allowed to have needs, had to take care of themselves, had to be self-sufficient. And the person who has some kind of anxious attachment has found a lot of belonging in supporting the person who's avoidantly attached
Right.
in helping them meet their needs.
Yeah.
And this is just very common in the work that we do.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, sometimes I think that when people recognize, oh, maybe I did have some trauma, or, oh, I do have avoidant attachment, I think it's so important to highlight, like, it's not a death sentence.
No.
It's not. I just think it's so important to know, right?
It's
just
not,
knowing.
there is no meaning necessarily on it. It's how do we build this insight so we can understand what are the motives behind what you're wanting or you're requesting,
right.
or when you're getting flooded and overwhelmed in a conversation.
Yeah.
How is this with your partner? Exactly.
I mean, I think the knowing of what your attachment style or styles are just helps you then become more informed, and exactly to what you said, like knowing what you need, knowing maybe why you are feeling really activated, and when you are activated, what is it that helps de-escalate? I mean, it's just it's so important. So, I mean, to your question, I think being really trauma informed and coming in with the lens of, well, I think we've all had overwhelming life experiences. Then when I'm working with couples or individuals, I just know it's there. It's just whether or not it's on the surface for them, right? And really normalizing it and making space and making them feel safe enough to eventually go there, right? If they feel comfortable to do that. Because really healing things can happen when you're doing some pretty intense, like, attachment, healing, trauma work, and their partner is sitting next to them.
It's so powerful.
It's sometimes the most moving sessions I've had. Right. Of just feeling so held, not only by your therapist, but also by your partner. Right. And then they get to go home and just continue that connection and that bond that they've just cultivated and created with what the partner witnessed. I mean, it's just amazing stuff.
It's so good. The curiosity, moving into the space of openness with your partner. There's nothing maybe better. And healing happening relationally.
Yeah.
Not just siloed and individual work, but actually having witness.
Exactly.
It's so
powerful.
It's so profound.
Yeah.
I'm wondering about I'm wondering how often, in thinking about trauma and kind of like hidden things, hidden parts, part of me imagines that people may consider opening up or polyamorous relationships when there may be a hidden gender or sexual identity that then emerges out of the safety that's experienced in a relationship, or just natural development in the individuation. And I was curious if you've seen or had experience with people that are opening up because there's a change in gender identity, or not a change, but a revealing of a gender identity, or a revealing about sexual preference, and how that,
Yeah, I have seen that. And sometimes that's explicitly known from the get-go when they're considering opening their relationship, and sometimes it's not, right? Sometimes those parts that are curious are pretty hidden away. But the desire to open is there. And then through their exploration, and say they are open and they do explore those things, then they're able to, then in those moments, sometimes they have the aha of like, oh, like this is maybe why I wanted to open, because I had some curiosities, I had some questions, and I felt like I needed to open up to get that. Right. And that can be really healing in and of itself. Right. But so much work also has to happen around that, of ensuring that there's acceptance and there isn't shame around the idea that they're wanting to explore and really connect with an identity or identities in them that they've maybe locked away for a while. Right. And then to potentially have one partner or multiple partners be in support of that is really healing. Right. So yeah, sometimes that does happen on a subconscious level. And then other times it is much more intentional, of like, yes, I do want to open because I do have these preferences, and my partner is aware of those preferences, and I can't get that from this particular relationship. And so I'd like to open. And I think when there's a level of awareness around that, that's great. But even if there isn't, I think that that's also fine, because then there's an opportunity for growth, right? And learning more about yourself.
Yeah. Is there also, I'm like thinking about reasons that people might open up. Is there also a portion of people that do it for like predominantly sexual preferences, like kink or like those things?
Yes, that definitely does happen.
Because I've seen a lot of relationships where maybe one person has a religious background and the other one doesn't, and so or just has a different value system, and so the openness and flexibility that someone may want to experience sexually is not compatible, but everything else in the relationship works well.
Yeah, and this is such a good example of how it's so hard to get all of your needs met from one person, right? Like it's so difficult. And so, to your point, there are couples where they're extremely compatible in all of the really important ways, but maybe sexually they do have some interests that doesn't align with their partner. And as long as there's consent and there's openness and there's transparency, honesty, and the other partner is really truly on board, isn't just a 50% on board, right? Because that can sometimes happen. And if that does happen, then there's just some that can eventually kind of come out later on. Well, initially I was okay with it, but then maybe I think maybe I really wasn't okay with it, right? And I think it's important for both partners to know that can change. Yeah. Right. In some phases of your life, you may be really okay with it. And then in other phases of your life, you're like, actually, things have shifted for me.
I think I really am appreciating how much you are putting an emphasis on that this is a fluid decision situation. Like this isn't a binding document.
Yes.
We can change the agreements.
Yeah.
We have to, yes, I might say something now that I'm agreeing to and I'm allowed to change my mind later.
Yeah.
And that this is like one of the tenets of the work.
Yes.
Is that people listening to what's actively coming up and addressing it and being able to like be honest with ourselves and our partners throughout a decision like this.
Right.
Or the lifestyle of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it has to be fluid, right? Because our feelings are fluid. Our feelings vary and they change depending on what's coming up for us and what's getting activated and what's happening in the here and now and what's from the past getting activated, right?
Our culture doesn't really like changing our minds.
Yeah.
Like we can get ourselves so far, like even we have to pick a major in college. And if you change your major, that's a whole, it's costly. We like to know how long you've been in a relationship for. And that's defining of the level of success of a relationship is the number of years you've been together. Right. Like
even professionally.
Absolutely.
Like, I have patients that are attorneys and they're like, I don't think I want to do this anymore, but I can't just like go into another field of law. Like in medicine, you can't you got to go back to training to do another specialty of 5, 4, 7. So I think that is a good point that we're used to anchoring like, this is what I've chosen. Right. Now I'm going to commit to this choice for my whole life.
Yeah.
And I think that's why non-monogamy is not for everyone. It's not for everyone.
Or like you said, you were committed to this relationship and now you're changing your mind, right? Like
I know. Well, I think the reality is it's scary.
It's scary.
Especially because in intimate relationships, it's so vulnerable. Vulnerability is such a core part of it that it's terrifying for some of our parts to think like, wait, you might change your mind at some point. Hold up. That's not okay. You know?
Or that there are secrets that are now revealed.
Right.
Maybe it wasn't a changed mind. Maybe it's always been a belief, but they didn't feel enough authority or empowerment or security to say,
Well, and this is actually something that I just believe about relationships in general is that in some ways when you're committing to somebody in a relationship, it's a bit of a leap of faith because we evolve as people and hopefully you evolve together, but you may not. Right. And when you don't, if you don't, then that's something to think about. And how do you want to navigate that? But you don't know when you're getting together with someone or marrying someone, you don't know what they're going to be like in 25 years. And you're kind of just hoping you'll still be compatible. But so to some degree.
It doesn't mean that somebody's lying or it's not a reflection of somebody's character.
Right.
I think these aren't just questions that pertain to ethical non-monogamy.
Exactly.
These are everyday things. Everybody's going to encounter overwhelming life experiences.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And have, life is hard.
Yeah, it is.
Life is tricky and we're all going to encounter intersections where we have to make decisions about choosing ourselves, trusting somebody else, trusting ourselves, self-betraying, or being honest. That, you know, there's a lot of double binds and tricky things to navigate relationally.
Right.
Yeah, that's why it makes me think, you know, I feel like one of the gifts of therapy is forced reflection and like a refreshing of these agreements and friendships and relationships and family dynamics, and like a reminder that we can change our minds and that's okay. And other people will have to accept it and get on board. And, but yeah, I think it is a universal thing and a gift of therapy to reconnect someone with their agency. Yeah.
And that multiple truths exist, right? You can feel one thing, but also feel another thing. You know, you can be jealous.
And choose something different.
Yeah. You can feel jealous, but also feel, you know, there's one term that's common within the ethical non-monogamy world of compersion, which is the opposite of jealousy, which is feeling really happy that your partner has met somebody and is really, you know, interested in them, right? You can feel compersion and jealousy at the same time, right? And that there's room for both, you know? And I think that can just feel really liberating of like, oh, I can have these conflicted feelings, or I can have these feelings that can, you know, seem like a lot, but they all are true and they all feel valid for me right now. That's okay. Absolutely. We are complex beings, you know? Yeah.
I think desire has so much shame. Like there's a shaming around desire. And I was just having this conversation with another therapist colleague about why are all these shows that are on right now, the premise of so many shows is desire. And desire for connection, desire for intimacy, desire for sex. And it's very stigmatized. And shame-based outside of you.
I tell you. Well, I'm chomping at the bit because I think we think that when we're in a monogamous relationship, that desire is like unacceptable.
Totally.
For you to have desire for somebody that is not your primary partner when you're in a monogamous relationship, people feel like bad.
So much shame when they come in, and it's so it's delicate. It's very important to make sure.
I mean, we're still human beings, right? Whether you're in a monogamous or non-monogamous relationship, you're still a human being, and so to have desire for someone else, that's a feeling, right? And you're not acting on it, and so to have a feeling is okay, and that's just such an important, you know, piece to highlight. And the difference between monogamy and non-monogamy is that in non-monogamy, maybe it's just it's less stigmatized. Right? But it's still happening, right? And
like for everybody.
It's happening for everybody. Exactly.
And if you, at least I feel like I've seen if the relationship, monogamous, whatever, can get to a point where the desires like can be held in the relationship, then it actually comes back in. And like the lead of desire for something outside hidden away, I think actually is risky for the relationship. But actually bringing it in makes the other person aware, and then the relationship can adapt, and then maybe the needs can be met in the relationship, or they can be chosen to be put aside consciously.
But sometimes even just naming it can be enough, right?
Well, and people really...
And then the other part, I'll be like, you know what? I actually have had desire to... And then it's like, oh, okay. We can... But we're still committed to we're still monogamous, but like, okay, we can have these desires and it's not... We can handle it.
Exactly.
The rumination that happens in our own minds when we think that something's taboo or we're not allowed or they're forbidden, right? Like,
shame is a very strong feeling.
It is all shame-based. And to your point, it's so beautiful in couples work when people put something on the table and then it's safe. It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah. Really powerful stuff. Yeah. I mean, and when you think about not wanting to express desire to your partner, it's usually due to the partner potentially then feeling a threat. Right?
And we don't want to hurt people. And this is why a lot of cheating happens. Is because somebody didn't actually want to hurt somebody. And so then they get stuck in this web of lies and deceit. And it's not living authentically over here, and it's not living authentically over here in alignment. And this is why, and I think it's worth it to mention that when we see infidelity or we see cheating in relationships with some kind of level of deceit or lying, it's often to protect the partner, not, and so that's why it's a symptom.
Yeah.
We look at this as not, it could be the thing that often is bringing people to couples
Right.
work.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the big thing, the crescendo that happened,
Right.
but it's not to us in the room. As therapists, it is not.
Right. There were things going on before that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
That led to the cheating.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we see it so often.
Yeah.
And it could be somebody found a Google search, somebody found the text thread conversation, somebody found the, it's so, the chance of getting caught is so high in this day and age that something pops up on the iPad or the tablet, right? Like, it is just so common for something to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, for a partner to find it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and there's so many different things that can lead to infidelity, right?
Yes.
But I think,
and so not shaming the infidelity is also very important.
Sure. Exactly. And really just being curious.
Being curious.
I love this idea of just always being curious. Like, okay, so what the partner who cheated, what was the motive around that, right? Because there's usually when you really peel back the layers of, it's not just, I just wanted sex, or, it's very rarely ever that. There's usually, well, I lost a part of myself in this relationship, or something. There's usually just such a much more meaningful reason as to why that I think sometimes gets lost because there's just so much shaming that happens. Right.
And then they're in a shame spiral.
Yeah.
And the other person's hurt. And then they're, if you got kids or you got something, it's so complicated.
Yeah. And I do wonder if maybe that's why some long-term relationships are exploring and being curious about opening up, right? To really prevent the infidelity and the secrecy of like, okay, well, maybe if we can just be more explicit about what it is that we're needing and wanting that maybe we're not getting in this relationship, which by the way, can be a very difficult conversation to have, right?
Yes.
And we can just be really open and honest. There's something really freeing about that, really liberating. Right. And I mean, shame just gets exacerbated when it's hidden. But when you start to like put it out there and it's in the light, it starts to dissipate and you feel like, oh, so it's okay. I don't need to be ashamed of my needs or my desires that aren't getting met right now because my partner is sitting across from me and still wants to stick it out with me. Like that's a big deal.
Huge.
Yeah.
Working with shame is so important in couples work.
Yeah. And I think it's the therapist's ability to identify it and not collude with maybe the client's desire to hide from it, I think is an important one too.
It can be so sensitive when you start unpacking.
Well, I mean, one thing I will say is when you're opening your relationship up, it requires so much internal work to do it in a healthy way. And I cannot stress that enough. Right. When I'm working with a couple who is either wanting to open or they are open and I can tell that they just haven't done a lot of introspection. They're lacking some self-awareness. They're not really aware of how they're impacting their partner. They're not willing to take accountability. Those are the moments then when I'll do my best to work with them in the sessions. But when I can tell that there's maybe even some past trauma that they haven't worked through, that's when I'm really encouraging individual therapy, because the reality is, as we've been talking about, opening up your relationship, even just having one relationship can feel really hard, right? But when you're opening it up and wanting to do it in a really intentional, thoughtful way, and you really want to foster healthy relationships, that takes a lot of work. Even for the healthiest person who's done a ton of work, it takes a lot of effort and maintenance in that. Yeah, exactly. And so I just am such a huge proponent in doing their couples work and doing their individual work and really making sure they're working with an individual therapist who's doing that deeper trauma-informed work, right? Because otherwise I think you're missing some really big pieces. Right? When we're not doing that deeper work and really understanding, why is it difficult for me to take accountability? Is it shame? Why is it difficult for me to see my partner? It's okay for me to go out on these dates, but it's difficult to see my partner go out on dates. What's going on with that? That could be some attachment stuff, right? I mean, it's so important to really peel back those layers. And I think when I feel most hopeful is when the clients are eager to do that individual personal work. When I see that they're like, oh, there's some stuff in there. I know I got to do some of my own individual work. I'm like, yes, let's go. Let's do it. Right. Because then I know that they really have the oomph behind it to do the hard stuff. Right. And I see it play out so beautifully in their romantic relationships when they do that work. Right. And that's it's an unbelievably fulfilling when you see them struggle and they're kind of in the midst of their super activated state, yet they're doing the hard work together and separately. And then you see how it trickles down in all the different parts of their life. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing better than that. Right. And for those who are hesitant, scared to go do that individual work because it is hard, go at their pace. And if all that they feel ready for is the couples work, we'll do that for now until they feel ready. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. Yay. That was so well said.
That's a quote.
Yeah.
That's a bar.
I was thinking that the whole time.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Shireen, thank you so much for coming on Mind Meets Medicine today. This is so special to have you, and hopefully the first of a few times you want to come, because I know you have lots of specialties. So we are very lucky to have you today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
This was fun.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And I'm almost in shape enough to work out with you again. So give me
I'll
another
meet
couple
you where
months.
you're at, sir. It's going to be totally fine.
I don't know that that's possible. I don't know that that's possible.
Could we ever bring Kaila on board? Nope.
I'll come to like a yoga class.
Okay, it's down.
Gentle yoga.
Yoga.
Little yin yoga.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on Instagram, Mind Meets Medicine Pod. I'm Kaila.
I'm Dr. Sir.
We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.